generally if you write Java direct program, you need to have a to understand where it starts. You need to write main method. So if the class will have any main method happens to be there. To avoid that, if you use JUnit testing, you write a test keyword. The indentation can understand it. You have to support with the XML file.
Okay.
And it will go to the specific test file and it will execute. You don't need to explicitly say.
So basically, you are trying to inject something. Yeah? So the same way, like if suppose there is some function is there, right? I want to add some more functionality to it. I can use decorators. Okay. So before like understanding decorators, it's very important. Like like everything in Python is object, right? Is it? So a function is also an object in Python. So when I say an object, so when I say that Python is a function is an object, I can assign that object to any other object also. I can pass that object to some function also. I can return that also. So in Python, if a function which is receiving other function as arguments, or any other function is like returning a function from it, we say those are higher order functions. So a function receiving other function as argument is a higher order function. Okay. So what I meant is,
Iterators second.
where?
Iterators second.
Okay. So you can see here I have one function, right? So I'm calling this function using I call this function. So what I'm doing is I'm assigning the first function to a second. Okay, now I'm calling second, right? So what I'm doing is I'm assigning this object to this second, right? And I'm invoking that. Why all this is like I'm like very easily achieving this, because Python everything is an object, right? Since Python like objects is assignable, so I'm assigning to another object and I'm doing these operations. Similarly, what are higher order functions? Say I have this function. I have these two small functions, increment and decrement. Okay. Now I have this function operate, and an operate I'm passing a function, an argument, func, and a number. What it actually doing is it is calling that function. Okay. So in this case, say operate is one function which is it is passing increment. Right? What is increment? Increment is a function, right? So it is passing. So it is passing this increment function and some value. Now this is actually calling this. So it is calling. So function is actually a increment function which is called with this value. So indirectly, I'm calling this function using operate. Indirectly, I'm calling the increment function using the operate. Okay. So if I run this, see it increments here. So I have this increment function and decrement function, and I'm calling this increment function using operate. Okay. If I call operate, what will be the output? So
we are passing some function from you will not pass it. You said that you are
because it's if I do that if I do this square circle basis, it would be calling that function. Okay. So, I'm basically passing a reference. You can say a reference. So we will see. So this basically builds the foundation for decorators. say this is, let's execute this. So I have this make pretty function and this ordinary function. When I'm calling this ordinary function, we're just printing that only, right? Now I want to inject something to this ordinary function. How I would be doing? So that is where the decorator comes. So what if I call that function using okay, I'm calling this make pretty function and I'm passing this ordinary function now. Okay, so we are decorating this ordinary function. Now let's see what this ordinary function is. So this now ordinary function is being decorated to this make pretty function. So what I essentially did, what I did was like I'm calling make pretty function, and I pass it this ordinary function. And what this make pretty function did, like it basically returned another function, inner function, which did some operation along with calling the old function. So now you see this is a very clumsy notation, right? So let's even avoid this also. And we annotate, or we can pass a decorator like. Yeah. So if I call now ordinary, it will, what is it doing? I have decorated with make pretty. No, it will decorate it because I have decorated ordinary function with make pretty function. Okay. If I remove this, it will be ordinary function.
So make pretty is doing the coding the
Yeah. So what make pretty is doing is it is injecting something to that call function. This is a very basic example. Okay. So in Java, like you have injection dependency injection you have, right? So yeah, so before that object is created, all the needed required objects for that are called beforehand. The same thing we are doing. So what is the use case of this is that if we take any modern Python web framework like Django or Flask, right? They all that web framework are highly dependent on decorators basically. Because of decorators only we are having these beautiful frameworks.
here we can also set the priority. Suppose the ordinary function is there.
Yeah.
Suppose here another ordinary function.
Okay.
So we want to execute in order wise.
Okay, you want to have multiple decorators.
Multiple days.
Yeah. So you, yeah, Python does support it. So if I have, say, suppose I have another decorator like better. So I have to. So the order would be like first make better decorator would be called, and after that make pretty would be called.
In Java, we set the priority. Like every annotation, we just give a priority 1, priority 2, even the function name is shared.
Okay.
So based on the priority, it will execute.
In this case, I don't know about priority, but if we have a multiple decorators, say like this.
So you have test methods, right?
Okay.
So you have 4 test methods in the class.
Okay.
Which one you want to execute first, and you can add a attribute like priority 1 to 2, so that you execute them accordingly.
Okay. I got that, but in Python it is done like
it
this.
Is like not execution like it.
It is
like
yeah,
sequence. You want
sequence.
to overlap something on top of your normal method.
And again, it follows the sequence. The decorator which is defined first would be executed first, and after that, it follows the sequence.
So when it is decorated like this, you cannot follow the ordinary method at all, right? In its original position.
Yes, yeah. Because the ordinary is getting decorated, right? I have decorated ordinary function with make pretty function.
So if make pretty function has one more argument, then
Make pretty has
make pretty has one more argument.
okay here. You mean like passing arguments to? Yeah, we can do. I have one.
Actually, that FUNC is grabbing the function name only.
Yeah, function name only. It's a reference of any function that is passed.
So you can pass a number of parameters if you have a number of methods below. You can overwrite, wrap everything.
So my question was,
if you say one more
argument,
can you call both of them in between that?
Yeah.
and how you will do annotation is also like accurate pretty, but it is expecting more than one parameter. Now you are writing the accurate make pretty, just it is accepting one function below ordinary. Now I have one more thing also to be passed in, and then how you will decorate it here.
You write like this. If you want to have multiple decorators, you can do like this.
No, what you're saying is if your decorative function has multiple parameters, how we can pass it?
Okay. Suppose so there is like decorators with arguments also. I have like a simple divide function, right? So this function will fail if I pass 0, right? So if the b argument, second argument is 0, right? So I'll pass argument. So basically a decorator which receives arguments.
That is not possible. That's
Yeah.
Only function will take and insert.
It will take only function, it will not take much. Yeah.
You cannot decorate two functions.
You can decorate with only you can have a multiple decorators, but you cannot like but you have to pass a single function. So this smart divide, what it is doing is it is checking like if b is 0, then I cannot do it like that. So if it is a simple divide, and if I call it's given 0 divisible by 0 error, right? Let's decorate it. So I decorated with some inner function, which basically checks the values. See, so it went to. So when I first call this divide 10 and 2, so it went to. So it get decorated with this inner function, and it returns me the output also. And if there is a b 0, it basically catches like b cannot be 0 and returns 9. Okay. So this is decorator. So the use cases as we discussed. Okay. So we have some cool data structures in Python also. Like we have a counter. A counter is like a data structure basically that helps me to keep track of the count of number of occurrences of equivalent elements in a container. Okay. So I have this list, right? A, B, C, C. Okay. I want to maintain a count of the element, each word. I want to have a count of each word, each letter basically. Okay. So I can use a counter data structure. If I do so it gives A occurred 3 times, B 3 times, C 4 times. Okay. So the counter has few methods that it supports. It has some update method. Like if you have defined one counter and you want to add some more elements to it, you can do an update. Again, you have this thing, which are the like most common elements, like counter dot most common. Okay. The mostly occurred word, which will character is equal to C occurred 4 times. Okay. If I want the top 2 letters, so it gives me. Okay. So in this way, I can use a counter. Okay. So all this advanced data structure you will basically find in collections module. Okay.
Does this operate only on the
No, it will operate in list also anytime. So yeah, it will operate in any sequence.
objects also?
Object in the sense? This is string object. Employee, okay. Then you have to, I guess, override. If you have a iterator implemented in it, then it should. Again, but you are telling department, right? But what is the criteria for it? Like IDs would be there, right? So based on what IDs?
For example, if you have employees, 10 employees, but they will be in different departments. So this department has how many employees?
No, let me see, the use case of this is this occurrence of equivalent elements in a list, right?
So does it mean that we have 10 employees and 3 different objects?
No, this is not the use case for it, I can say. Say, I have so it will give me
If you have, can you have tuples
yeah.
inside this? So suppose 1, 2, 1, 3.
So I created a counter for it. I have 1 appeared 2 times, 2 appeared 2 times, 3 appeared 1 times. That is what you want.
So for example, I have in the collection 1, 2 as one object, then 1, 3 as another object, 2, 3 as another object.
Okay, okay. So it will so it's again inside a list. Right. So one and 2 have appeared, right?
Can we put one more element? 2 comma.
So it will this one I even got for let's put in a list. So one argument. So it gave 1, 2 appear twice. Okay. 1, tuple appeared once and 2, 1 appeared once. So it supports update method. It has like some few more methods. Like we can have a set operations over the counter objects. Like I have pointer 1, as C1 is having ABCD and C2 is having alphabets. So I can combine using C1 plus C2, C1 minus C2, C1 and C2, all these things. So all the set operations are supported in counter objects. Yeah, similarly, we have a default dictionary. What default dictionary does is, so as mentioned earlier, like dictionary doesn't have any order of elements, right? Because it has a hash function internally. So what if I want to have the sequence, order of the sequence by which I inserted in the dictionary? So for that, I have ordered dictionary. It maintains the sequence. I don't have, default. So I have this default dictionary. I appended. Oh no. So what I'm telling is ordered dictionary. Basically, order is maintained. Default dictionary is like we have one dictionary, and we have this. Say this is one dictionary, default dictionary, and I have this key1, key2, and key3. When I try to get another, like a key which is not there in the dictionary, like key 11 is not there in the dictionary, right? So it will give key error, right? Because the dictionary doesn't have that key. So in order to like avoid such situation, we can basically initialize our dictionary with some default object or default value. And for that, I have I basically give one what would be my default value, for which for this basically default dictionary I have to give one factory object which basically supplies the default value. So suppose, so in this case so since key 11 is not there in the dictionary, right? But still it is giving me a default value. How it is giving? Because I have given a default value. I have provided a factory method which gives the default value. So just in case if you like if you're trying to retrieve a key which is not there, it gives a key error. To avoid that, we use default dictionary. And again, like default dictionary, like you can have like for a single value you can have a multiple for a single key you can have a multiple values, right? You can store it. You can store these multiple values in the list. Like the default value here is list, and say I'm inserting Python. The key is Python. Second awesome. And something else. And again, I'm inserting Python as a key. It is getting appended to awesome. Okay. So now this dictionary, Python is having two values, awesome and language. Why? It's just because I passed the default dictionary with my list. Okay. So I can have multiple values for the particular key. Okay. Because I initialize default dictionary with a list. So that is the use case of default dictionary. We have a deck. Deck is like a double-ended key. Like you have a queue, right? Queue supports only pop operation, right? So you can like get the element from one end.
And stack is pop.
Queue is what? DQ, NQ and DQ operations supported, right? So in this case, so deck what it does is I can pop the elements from either of the ends. Like if I want to insert some elements, I can do extend. So what extend will do is it will extend this list. It will add at the end of this list. You see, I have a deck. Okay. Now deck has been extended. If I do a deck. So deck has been extended with 11 and 12 at the end of the list. Okay. What if I want to add in front? Append left. So if I print deck now, so it adds in front of the deck. So it's basically a double-ended cube. Like you can add, delete, pop left. What pop left will do, it will remove from the left end of the cube.
Different than the previous one, right? Extend works differently.
Yeah, extend basically at the end of the cube. I'm doing operations at the either end.
Because he has put array, that's why it's saying array. You can put array counter into that. Is it? Output is different.
Extend works as it is normal.
Basically, extend what it does is extend. It adds to any list individually. It's a property of extend. So if you provide a list, it will add individually to that list. It is collect. Append will do, yeah. If I do append on it, it will add that list. It will now print the same way. You see.
Square bracket will it enter as individuals?
You can do individual values.
No, then we have to give only one value, right? It will not take. This will not work, right? Because I guess append will now say that it doesn't understand the second argument, something like that. Okay. So another data, like we have a name tuple. Okay. We have another data structure name tuple, we have like Python tuples, right? Tuples are like immutable lists. And if I want to, the problem with tuples is that if I want to access, if I want to grab any element from a tuple, I need to give the index, right? They are not basically, say suppose if a tuple is having some 100 elements, if I want some particular element, I need to provide index for that. So it becomes a cumbersome, right? So why don't we have a name for each element in the list, in the tuple basically. So that is what the name tuple is. So suppose if I have a tuple and I'm giving, this is my tuple type lang, and these are my tuple elements. So name, author, and year. So I'm initializing my tuple with these values. So now, if I do if I want to access any of the element of this tuple, I can use this operator basically. I have a tuple dot name. So what it will print Python. If I want to access this element, which has been named as year, right? So I'll be accessing this element using result.year. So it will print 1995. So basically, I'm not using index. So if in typical tuple, what happens? I'll be passing the tuple name and 0, 1, 2. So I'll be passing 2 index. So it will print that element. So rather than like depending on index, why not we depend on some? We have given a particular name. So that is what the name tuples are. And you have an order dictionary. So the same thing. Order dictionary basically maintains the order in which the keys are entered. The key. So if a normal dictionary like will not maintain that order. If you will access, it will not like maintain the sequence. It's a random. Okay. So in Python, like the unit testing. So in how unit testing is done in Python is like we have a unit test module actually. Okay, so we define a class and what are the function that we want to test. So like basically when we create a unit test suite is there. So when you click on like I want to create a unit test for this module, so it auto generates all this, and you just have to like fill this. Like, so basically it picks what are all the methods in your module, and it creates the suite for you, and you can do the normal testing, like all the asserts that you can do. Okay. So these are my two functions. I want to write the unit tests. So unit test.test case, and then you can do asserts, and how this is how it is like called upon. Another important thing in Python is like modules. Like you have written one code in some file, right? You want to use that code somewhere in other file, right? What you will be doing? So I have this calculator.py which has this add function. Now I want to use this add function in some other file. Okay. So simply what I will do is I'll just import that calculator, so the file basically in which it is defined, and I can directly use calculator.add. Or else what you can do is from a calculator import add. Okay. So these are the actually different ways like how you can import. If I do a star, what happens? So is it a good practice or what? Yeah. So only the function that I need I would be importing. So this is the best way to do. Okay. And I can like I can create alias like the modules. So like I like from calculator import add as a, then I can call the a function. These are some inbuilt methods. If some doc strings I have provided, so the help will give all the doc strings that are there. And the dir function basically, dir function will print all the methods in that math library. Yeah, one important, this is the last slide. We have a context manager, right? Okay. So yesterday, I guess we saw like how to do the file operations. Right? We will be doing file counter and do right. So generally, what we happen, we tend to like we have this descriptor, right? File descriptor file, and generally what we do is we forget to close that. If file dot close, many times we forget, right? So it's basically a memory leak for any programming language, right? So in order to avoid that, Python has one construct called with open, right? So what with does is like it creates a context, right? And when that context is over, so all the resources that are taken, they are automatically freed up. Okay. So in this case, I opened that file, and when this like context is over, that file is automatically closed. That file descriptor is automatically deleted, and like no leakages, nothing. And again, with this construct, what it does is, as I mentioned, like suppose what will happen if you have a very big file, like a 1 GB file. So it has to the file descriptor will be having all the context of the file, right? So which is basically huge memory loss. So with open internally implements a generator function also. Okay. Okay. So you can basically on the fly you can get the contents of that file. It has internal implementation of iter and next. So that is the advantage of having with open in particular with file operations. So contact manager allow you to allocate and release resources precisely when you want. So this is exactly what we are doing. Yeah.
With open, we allow the type option like the read write.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do it. Yeah. So you can do a f dot read or read line. F dot read line. So here f is my file descriptor, or you can say handle to which I can access the file contents. You have a f dot seek also, or all file operations you can do. But the only advantage, that it provides is that you need not take care of, like you need not explicitly release the file. So with basically construct takes care of it. And again, if it's a huge file, it's a generator based implementation. So that's the. Any questions?
So we have iterator as well. Like, do we need to explicitly define our iterator?
Where no. With open, it's internally implemented. I can open around any 1 GB file also, whatever size the file is. So it basically generates. It yields each line. Like that. Actually, I have this example. Okay, I will do. Okay. So basically what it does, it is printing the content of the file. So I have this file sample.txt. So you can see the so f, I'm trying, see, it's a for loop which is iterating over the yeah, I can mention that it has yeah, you can do the R mode anything. So you can see I'm trying to iterate over the file handler, right? It internally implements generator function. So I have no headache of like no matter what is the size of the file, I can easily. So it's a very handy function basically. That's it. Yeah, we have actually a license.
Yeah.
So what you do is you Google Python free license, you get many.
So we use community.
You don't use community, you do an enterprise edition and you Google it Python free license link basically. You provide one server link, right? You will easily find it. No problem.
Actually, Cucumber is not
Okay, so you want to have a Cucumber a plugin in Python.
we have added.
Okay.
Yeah, we have added.
But it has some problems.
It's not. You click on the steps and all, it will navigate, right? Not generating. It's not understanding that it is a feature file.
Oh.
Because of the community.
Okay.
So
I can help you on that. So getting the license, it basically hits the one license server. So you just need to provide that license server URL. You will get when you Google it. So, if you will find, then I can.
What is this environment basically? Virtual environment.
Okay, so say suppose you have this your system file, right? It ships with default Python 2.7 or 3.6, whatever it is. Now, if you have one project, now that project needs Python 3.5 version, right? So what you will do is you will create a virtual environment of 3.5 in your system, and you can work on that project. So it basically in your system only, it provides a separate environment for 3.5. It will, if you create a virtual environment for 3.6 also, it will create a separate environment for 3.6, and you can I have created many virtual environments. You see, you go to project interpreter. See, so I have purchased 3.5, 3.3, and I guess it provides this also, create a virtual environment also. So PyJam has a lot of ease actually. Otherwise, what you will do, create virtual VNV, you have to again activate and deactivate your environments, right? So all those headaches are not there in PyJam. So easily you can create.
So PyCharm also asks for the virtual environment.
Yeah, that is what that's what.
Do we need to create virtual environment for every project, or is there any way?
No, depends on
Same environment for all the projects.
It depends on what environment you are project.
Same environment. Let's say if I'm trying to create a new project.
Okay.
Every time first it is asking to create a virtual environment. Is there a way to avoid it?
That is what, you said that an interpreter for that.
Which version is good for us to start?
Better to go because we have to again. So if you want to understand, maybe it is good.
No, all 2.7 and 3.6 are almost same basically. But I would say it's basically syntax thing only, not very much different. Basically, it has some libraries thing there.
Which is
You will enjoy working with Python 3.6. See, you see the print in Python 2.c you do a print of direct statement, but in this case you have to give the braces. Yeah. So 2.7 is 2.3.6 is very much handy. You will like it also. So and again you can have your interpreter in remote machine also. So suppose your code is here, but you want to compile it against interpreter which is in remote machine. So you can provide like this. So these are my interpreters which are different remote machine. So you are compiling your code against the remote machine. So these are the advantages. It will create an error. It would be like version specific error. There are many actually in libraries also. When you do a pip install or something, they will have some problems with versions. No. It is like installer, Python package installer. Okay. So suppose you are doing one project and you have some dependency. So your project needs some class. You will be doing a pip install class. Right? That's what virtual environment is. Now, if you do a pip install on your terminal, right, it basically gets installed system-wide, right? Sometimes what happens, you don't want to disturb the system environment. You create a separate environment using a virtual environment, and you activate that environment, and you do a pip install on that. So that package installs in that environment. It doesn't disturb your system-wide alone. Any questions? Any more questions? Okay then. Thanks for coming.
Please do share the.
Yeah, I'll add in a before. Yeah. Thanks. Yes, sir.